So you practice your solo vocabulary, you learn the tune, and you're not getting lost in the form. But it means nothing if you play your solo and your bandmates still don't come in on one after you finish your solo. So in this video, I'm going to show you how to play jazz solos where your bandmates actually come back in on one because they know exactly where you are. So in order to understand why your bandmates aren't coming in after your solo, we need to understand what your bandmates are listening to. They're saxophonists, they're trumpet players, they're pianists. And so when you play, they don't know if you're playing a paradiddle diddle or you're playing a six-stroke roll or the slick Philly Joe Jones thing that you played. They just hear one thing, and that's the accents. The accents of what you're playing. It's the highs and the lows. Because if you think about it, what they're playing, bebop melodies like ornithology, but they have clear accents. Confirmation. Right? That's what you hear in the phrasing. So they're going to relate to that. And if you don't make that really, really clear, they're going to get lost in the form. But not all notes are created equal, okay? So check it out. There's different kinds of accents and dynamic levels you need to use in your solo. So we know we need to use accents, but when and how much and how often and what's kind of the secret ratio to get it so that your buddies don't get lost? And that's where I like to use something I call the 80-15-5 rule, okay? It starts with 3 levels of accents, okay? The first level is 80% of everything you're going to play is going to be what we call taps, right? Or ghosted notes. So taps are like the connective tissue in between. If we're thinking of the Charlie Parker melody, it's all the low notes, the ones that aren't accented, okay? So for a drummer, we're playing something like this. It's all this. That part, right? So a good way to practice this is to start by just playing everything at tap height and see if you can flow like that. Right? You want to be able to flow for at least like 8 bars just staying at that tap height so that later when we add in the higher notes, they'll be really clear, okay? So that's the first exercise. 8 bars of soloing at just tap height. Okay, so the taps make up 80% of what you're going to play. What's the rest of the 100%, okay? This brings us to the second level, which is what I call medium accents, okay? Medium accents are the notes that pop out in the phrase, in the Charlie Parker melody. Right? You hear those bigger notes at the end of the phrase that kind of glue it together, okay? So in your drumming, these accents should be like 15% of what you play. It's like they happen 1 to 2 times for a bar, right? So if I play something like this, we can hear that it's like mostly taps, but there's these accents that kind of glue it together. If I have no accents versus adding the accents, you can hear it's got more of a structure to it, okay? So the next exercise you want to do, you want to play 8 bars of solo and try to add in 15% of the medium accents, okay? So okay. Now, an important step here is you might find when you do that you feel like you're playing accents, but it doesn't actually sound like it. So you have to break down a couple phrases with really clear accents by doing this, okay? The first step is to play everything high, right? And then you want to play everything low, tap height, and really keep it low, but then add in the accents and keep the taps low, right? That's how you get that difference. The difference is what makes the accents clear and the phrasing clear. And that's what's going to make it so that your buddies don't get lost when you're playing. Okay? So that is going to be most of what you're playing. Now you're probably wondering, 80%, 15%, what's the other 5%? It's not adding up here. I'm going to tell you in a second. But before we do that, you're watching this and you're like, okay, cool. But where'd you get that solo idea? And how do I know what the form of the song is? Well, you need more things than just accents to become a complete jazz drummer. You need vocabulary from the great jazz drummers. You need to learn the tunes that everybody plays. You need to have good phrasing so you don't get lost in the form. Can't cover all of that in this video, but that is what I work on with my students at the jazz school, where I mentor people really closely so that I can give you immediate feedback on what you need to become a complete jazz musician and start playing gigs with people or to get into a college jazz school or book your own gigs, right? So if you're interested in that, click the link in the description. You'll be able to reach out to me, get some more information, and apply for the jazz school. You have to be at a certain level to really make it. So, put your best foot forward. And if you're a good fit, we'll talk soon. And that brings us to the last 5% of the 80-15-5 rule, which is strong accents, or what I call releases, okay? So strong accents are these big walloping crashes that you play maybe once, maybe twice, at max 4 times for chorus. And what they are is they're marking the most important parts of the form, okay? So a strong accent might sound like this, right? Or it might sound like this, right? A really big release, usually it's some sort of crash. The place you put it is more important, okay? So the band, they're interacting with the form of the song to not get lost in your solo. They're counting away, making sure they don't get lost. And you need to give them really strong checkpoints in the most important places. Most important being the top of the form, if you're playing a multi-chorus solo, the middle of the form, right? And then the other places are the top of each section. Like if the form is A, B, A, C, then you mark the top of the A, mark the top of the B, mark the top of the next B, A, and then mark the top of the last C, okay? So these make up 5% of your playing. Don't overdo this, okay? You don't want to be crashing and crashing. Right? If you do that, then they lose their value. Accents are only accents in contrast to the lower notes. So you want to save these for the end of your phrase or the beginning of a really important phrase, okay? So the next exercise you want to do is to play an 8-bar phrase and only use a strong accent at the beginning and at the very end. So something like this. Right? This is like a next level thing. This separates, the pros from the amateurs. If you really mark the form in this way, first of all, it's going to sound very exciting because you have these different contrasts of different accents, but it's also going to be really, really clear where you are. You're taking care of the band. Okay, these mean nothing in isolation. The only way that your bandmates aren't going to get lost in the form while you solo is if you use all these together in the perfect ratio, like you're cooking the perfect pot of stew, right? So remember, we want the 80% taps, we want 15% medium accent, and 5% strong accents. So let's do an exercise where I'm going to play a chorus of solo, 32 bars. I'm going to think of form like Just Friends, okay? And what I'm going to do is I'm going to try to hit that magic ratio. Mostly taps, 80%. Strong accents, 1 or 2 per bar, right? Making sure that I'm marking each bar. They can feel the pulse very clearly. And then saving those big accents for either the top of each section or the top of the form, okay? Let's do it. Let's do a chorus over Just Friends. 1, 2, 1, 2, 3. So remember, if you use accents in the 80-15-5 rule, your solos will be super clear, your bandmates won't get lost in the form, and you're going to be a swinging jazz drummer. If you found this interesting, you want to go deeper into phrasing and soloing, click the link in the description to grab my free 7-day jazz drumming course. And you can click here to watch my full roadmap to become a complete jazz drummer. We'll see you in the next one.